Many of us within these circles have a tendency to believe that metal can only work through rigorous rules and procedures in terms of composition. Transgression of these rules is seen as a lack of understanding of the genre and a weakness in compositional ability. Songs are expected to follow a specific flow that starts with an introduction, then a development, an interlude or not, depending on the style, before reaching a climax and then ending the song with a conclusion which corresponds, more often than not, to the song's introduction or the main riff in the development. The easiest way to adhere to this arrangement philosophy within a death metal context is through the use of closely connected riffs. The general philosophy behind this idea is that it maintains continuity, and the juxtaposition of the riffs communicates something as equally as important as the riffs themselves. For example, a slow doomy riff transitioning to a fast thrash riff can suggest a violent explosion regardless of what the riffs themselves are conveying, because we, the listeners, interpret slow to fast as an increase in energy. I can think of quite a few 80s death thrash bands that did this. Very simple chromatic sequence played slowly, 8 to 16 times. And then you get the same thing, except with a lot more chugging and an extra note or two played within that. And, it's so standard. It really doesn't add anything. And, I've never found it very effective at all. While there is a lot of merit in the notion of coherence, tying together the labyrinthine arrangements of extreme metal, it is also prone to error, as all of the best metal was built on the idea of opposing and strongly contrasting musical ideas from the level of the riff all the way to the album. A lot of the great death metal riffs, Suffocation immediately comes to mind. You're going to have a very harsh, dissonant section in the riff, and it's countered by something a lot more melodic, a lot more conventional. And you have that contrast within the riff, and then you're going to have the contrast between riffs within a passage. Slow, fast, aggressive, calm, all kinds of things. And that can even escalate to the album. A lot of times side A tends to be a hit in the face, while side B is a relaxing and calm listen. All these contrasts can be found in so much metal. Stark contrasts in life and music elicit the strongest emotional responses. A sudden death caused by an unexpected heart attack causes more grief than a drawn-out battle with a disease. Without these shifts, the listener would end up drowned in a barrage of similar riffs without any highlights or defining moments. You can think about a lot of war metal and grindcore bands, where everything is trying to constantly be more aggressive, faster, heavier, whatever, all the time. And what happens, eventually the listener, as we, the listeners, we get used to that. And it just kind of becomes the standard floor level in terms of noise. So when you don't have these contrasts, you just get a long, monotonous, segment of background noise. Anyway, here are some sudden transitions that outright contradict this limited mindset. So the song breaks down out of nowhere from this really technical riff into a single violin as the guitars slowly come back in with sparse chords. Then there's a quick drum break out of nowhere, and the song goes into this really dense harmony with a bit of polyphony as the violin takes the lead role. And then out of nowhere, another shift, in this time into a very aggressive riff that ends the song. So in less than a minute, we are treated with a rich tapestry of ideas that go from complete melancholy to explosive anger. Had the band taken more steps to achieve seamless transitions, the riffs would be diluted and the overall intensity significantly lessened. You know, because once you add more riffs or you take extra steps, you know, you're adding more information. So the information that you want to express is not going to be lost. It's still going to be there, but it's going to be harder to find. And it's going to be fighting against, you know, the other pieces of information. So you get something that's diluted, whereas fast, brutal transition, bam, everything's conveyed, everything's there. So the song starts with an iconic intro as it progresses internally until there's literally nowhere left to go. You know, it just builds up so smoothly. Everything about the beginning is perfect. So what do you do from this point? Do you add another similar riff that doesn't really introduce much, that hasn't been done? Because, you know, the band have chosen their progression and they're completely going along with it. No, just beep a simple dissonant chord and they can bring in even more ideas, you know, slightly different, still connected, but it's that brief and harsh transition which allows them to go from these somewhat connected ideas very quickly and usefully, you know, and it, you know, forms a perfect introduction for Attila to begin his insane theatrics. From then on, the song flows effortlessly, but once again, it uses a brief dissonant chord to seg into the final powerful statement. See, this one is a bit trickier because rhythmically it's very similar. It's within the same kind of logic melodically, but it's too distant, you know. The band would have to take too many steps to transition into that final idea smoothly. But just reusing that quick dissonant chord, and it sounds absolutely perfect. It really fits the song in. And, you know, sometimes, more often than not, you don't need transitions, especially not in black metal. And, you know, those little beeps, they work like perfect auditory bookmarks. They really separate and enforce the song's structure. Alright, so now for our final song, Morbid Angel's Fall from Grace. You know, a lot of people tell me, yeah, but Morbid Angel use a lot of smooth transitions, they're seamless. No, that's a complete lie. You know, none of the early stuff works like that. There are some seamless transitions, don't get me wrong. There definitely were, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as people think. So, you know, here, the main passage is divided into two riffs. You know, one of them is a very choppy staccato rhythm, and the other one is a cadence tremolo picked riff with a little trill in the middle for variety. So, you know, both are opposed to each other rhythmically and are melodically very differently. So what changes that, you know, the riffs are kind of played together 4 times overall in the song. So the first time, this is within the development, you know, after the intro, where, you know, you get the chuggy staccato rhythmic riff that's played, the drums kind of progress through it, then there's a break, and then it goes into the cadence tremolo picked riff. And this is done to really, you know, highlight, okay, these are 2 different riffs. These are fantastic riffs to, isolated. Let's mark the difference. And then when the song kind of goes into this mini verse chorus arrangement, you know, an arrangement within the arrangement, which is something that Morbid Angel have done quite a lot in their career overall. You know, the riffs take on very static roles. You know, the cadence riff becomes the verse riff, and the choppy riff becomes the chorus, you know, with the song's title repeated quite a few times. But when the band do that, they don't need any transitions despite the riffs being very different. They just shove them together. But because those riffs have been introduced before separately, you know, you have one great riff going to another great riff, and sometimes it doesn't take more than that. That's all you need. And, you know, that's the thing about death metal. Death metal is not smooth music, you know, nor should black metal be. It's rough music that deals with horrors, and in the case of Morbid Angel's Blessed Are the Sick, literally about being the sick and the degenerate. You know, we can't expect them, you know, to make smooth music. You know, aesthetically and compositionally, there needs to be something rough around the surface, controlled but rough. And this is something that Morbid Angel have done to absolute perfection here. The contrast between the verse and the chorus, well, it doesn't feel like a standard heavy metal song. And that's how the band are capable of achieving such a strong vision by forcing their ideas onto that song, you know? And in general, as seen with these three iconic songs, what generally matters is not the blind adherence to arbitrary rules, as a lot of us have believed, but rather the ability to impose a certain form of logic that is limited only by the composer's imagination. As long as the music conveys something interesting, the methods used to get there bear no consequence to its quality. So anyone who tells you that, oh, but the best of metal is built on smooth transitions, that's just a crux they're imposing on themselves. Thank you very much.